But we're going to go ahead and get started talking about Canva and social media. Here's our agenda today. We're going to talk about using Canva to make graphics, logo and brand guidelines in association with student organizations, using social media, and how to use social media and marketing to make your events stand out. So this is Canva, and one of my friends is going to go ahead and share the link to Canva for you all in the chat. So if you want to hop on yourself and look at it, or if you already have an account, go ahead, feel free. But you're going to click in the top, create a design after logging in, and that is going to be how you start the process. Canva is luckily really simple. It's a lot less complicated than something such as Photoshop, but here you're going to get to pick the dimensions of what you want to create. So for the purposes of this, we're going to be using an Instagram post, which is a really common one. Most student organizations have an Instagram. I would say it's one of probably the most popular social media platforms. You can resize these later. So if you start making your design and then you decide it's the wrong size, you can export them to be different sizes. But I also want you to note that some sizes will not fit on certain platforms. So if you have a unique platform, make sure you Google how many pixels will be able to fit so that you ensure that you're using the right size. You have to select from these if you want to make a custom size. I do believe you have to have a pro account, which they should have a free trial of if you're interested in just testing it out. But let's go ahead and get into it. So here I've selected to make an Instagram post, and you can see these circled logos here on the left. You can use these to create your design. So the first one is template. I recommend starting with a template and filling in your information or editing it in some way to make it fit more the vibe of your organization or the event you're doing. It's just a really good starting point to have all of the different elements and headings in there. But of course, also feel free to start from the white screen from scratch and build it to however you want to see it. The Elements tab here on the left underneath templates includes little moving pictures, other little icons that you can put on your flyer. Uploads allows you to upload your organization's logos or any photos that you may have that you want to insert onto your flyers. And once you upload something there, Canva does store it for you. So unless you go back and intentionally delete it, it should stay in there. So once you upload your logo once, it's always in there. In text, you can of course add heading, subheading. They also have some fun word art fonts that are unique. And in background, it just helps you customize what the background of your flyer is going to look like. So I went ahead and created a flyer for us to take a look at today to just kind of talk about some design tips. And disclaimer, this is not a real event. However, if you think this would be a fun event, go ahead and let us know. So let's just go over some things here with this, starting from the top. So you see it says our office presents. So just a note I would make about this is that's not a very specific title, right? We're not sure what office we're talking about. Are we talking about ASU? Are we talking about a club? We're not sure. So thinking about making sure that your flyers have the most specific information without being too cluttered. Then moving down on the left to the date, you'll see that we have like a capital J and then the U and the N are lowercase. And after the 16, we have a TH. That can just look a little bit inconsistent depending on the fonts you're using and the boldness of your font and the size of your other letters. So just for professionality, I would suggest not using the TH and ensuring that in your month, all of your letters are capital. Or if you want to spell out the entire month, that works too. And I have another example after this that will show you some suggestions on what to do. But moving over to the right there with the time, you can see that it just looks a little bit wonky, a little bit inconsistent with the capital P, the lowercase m. And because you're showing 7 p.m. to 8:30, so you have that, the colon, and then the extra 2 digits after the 8 there, it looks a little bit inconsistent. Then for the information in the 2 boxes, you'll see there's just not enough information. People who have to comment for the link, say you're having an online webinar, there's definitely going to be people, of course, that are really interested in your organization and are going to comment. But I would suggest for the most engagement and involvement that you include that information in a flyer so that people don't have to go anywhere else to look for it. And then for the location over in the maroon box, Memorial Union, there's a lot of rooms here in our Memorial Union, so just being more specific than that. And then lastly, for your logo, depending on how your logo looks, putting it on top of a patterned background can make it hard to read. So in this case, it's not too bad. It's pretty bold. But if your logo was, say, maybe black, you might want to change the color of your background, or if it has a lot of colors, you might want to put it on top of a black box. So I'm going to proceed then to a different version of this flyer that includes some of the suggestions I was talking about. So at the top, you can see we're being specific about our department, Student Orgs and Leadership Presents, so that people know what we're talking about. Over in the date, you can see we have capitalized all the letters and we've removed the TH after the 16. In the time, we've made both ends of the time look consistent. So I'll go back here real quick to our other example. We would want to put here a colon and then the 2 zeros after the 7, and then make the PM fully capital to make sure it's consistent on both sides. And you can see I also have spaces between the dash on either side and between the PM and the numbers, just trying to make everything look consistent once again. Our information is detailed. In this case, I've written swipe to join. So if posting this on Instagram, there would be an additional page with the link just to kind of help clear up some information so that the flyer doesn't become too cluttered. And I've given a specific location. And you can see here with the logo, I added a black box that's honestly not super noticeable behind the logo, just to help give it some clarity and make sure there's no confusion. And I also want to add here, these are of course just some tips on professionality and just making your flyers look really clean. But of course, this is your student organizations and your flyers, and feel free, of course, to be as creative as you want. These are just some general tips, but definitely use all the colors, all the fonts, all the fun things that you all can find on Canva, because there's a lot. So we're going to go ahead and talk quickly about some other helpful Canva tips. The first one is creating a team. I love this feature, especially for student organizations. So you can see here I've circled my team. I can invite people that are associated with my organization, and they will get the edit access to any of the flyers that I make in the team. And they can also create flyers in the team that I then would have edit access to. Because otherwise, if you want somebody else to edit your flyers, you have to send them individual links to each flyer and to each person. And this just makes it a lot easier to have everything in the same place. Here's another screen I just wanted to show you all so that it's a little bit more clear. This is the Year Projects tab. This saves everything you've ever worked on, which is great. You can go in and edit them at any time, add additional pages to them, duplicate them, change their sizes, all of that sort of stuff. You can see that my Change the World flyer there, I had changed the size of to go from Instagram to Facebook, which is really cool. So now we're going to talk a little bit about developing ASU affinity in your brand. This is, of course, not a requirement. Feel free to be as creative as you want, but if you're doing anything maybe affiliated with an official university department or whatnot, here's the ASU color palette. These are the color codes for all of ASU's official colors, the primary and the secondary ones. And a link at the bottom there to the elements of the brand. But I also have here a lot more links to logos and writing fonts, templates, and other things that ASU recommends. This PowerPoint that I'm showing you right now is from an ASU template, and as long as you're an ASU student, you should have access to all of that sort of stuff. So this is definitely a really cool resource to check out. That kind of brings us into a little bit of some restrictions and guidelines for student organizations specifically. So making flyers or making logos for your club, which you can do on Canva. You can make presentations, logos, flyers, videos even. So you as a student organization are only authorized to use Sparky and this more academic looking pitchfork in its unedited version. So you unfortunately couldn't take the pitchfork out of Sparky's hands and put like a golf club or something like that. And you can't have anything covering any part of the image. It has to be used in its entirety. And it also has to have the trademark symbols that you can see there attached. If you need access to these, they should be in the student officer training that you all would have taken for your organizations. And if you don't have access to that, feel free to let any of us know and we will send you these logos. Same goes for naming your organization. If you want to put your org's name on your flyers, here's just a couple quick examples of acceptable names using the designation at ASU or at Arizona State University at the end of your club name. Just a quick reminder for everyone when you make your flyers. So we're going to move on a little bit to the social media side of stuff and talk about using social media to your advantage. So some good tips that we have for you are to link your social medias together. You can link your Instagram and your Facebook together, and every time you post on one, the post goes in both places, both for your feed and for your stories, which I would recommend posting everything on both to make sure you reach the most crowds. In my experience, people tend to just scroll through their stories when they're walking around or waiting for something, so they can see that and direct to your feed after viewing your story. Another tip for reaching your larger audience is turning your accounts into business accounts. This will keep track of the engagement on your posts and the engagement on your account overall, so you know when to post and when the statistics are high. Usually around the end of the workday, 5 to 6 is when people are the most engaged, basically just not posting in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning. And then lastly, I would recommend closed captioning all of your videos or leaving a detailed description on your posts to make sure that's accessible. Another thing to make it appealing to the eye, instead of just posting photos or flyers, mix it up, post a good variety of both, make your feed look interesting, as well as keeping your captions short and sweet unless you're providing accessibility features. People can always look into the flyer, look into your bio, things like that. And when you're posting things on your story, put stickers on it or draw on it, make little patterns in the background, make it more visually appealing than just reposting whatever was on your feed. Another good tip to make it engaging is, again, stories, creating polls or quizzes so that people can interact with you and you can actually post their replies, and it creates good or develops good community bonds between your student organization and the general student body. You can also tag the location that you're at, which will allow anyone else at the same location to see who's posting in their area, which is great. Another tip we have is using Linktree to insert multiple relevant links into your bio. So say you are holding like a Zoom or conference online event, you can go ahead and put that link in your bio and people can easily go access it, on top of maybe the link to your organization's double sync account, so that when they really enjoy your event, they can request to join your club. And in general, it's a good practice to include some sort of contact information. So maybe encouraging users to DM your accounts or providing an email address, just so if they're interested about your club, they can reach out. On that note as well, our team is happy to share your posts on our stories or in our feeds when it's appropriate. So feel free to DM our accounts. These are all of our accounts for each of the 4 campuses. And I'll leave this here for just a second, but if anyone wants this information, we can also send it in the chat. But with that, that pretty much wraps up this workshop.